What I love about today's guests on the podcast is that they teach us that kindness and having good manners can be the fuel to create the impact that you want to and to build the kind of network that you need to really put your work out there. So for all my creatives who are listening, this episode, I believe, is a masterclass in both having great manners and those manners leading to incredible opportunity. Danielle Beckmann and Timothy Reese are a husband and wife team. They have the production company, Brooklyn Quarter, and they produce web series, pilots. They've got some pitches they're working on. And we go into all of that in today's episode. But what I want you to listen for and why you need to grab a notebook and a pencil or pen, whatever you like to write on, grab your iPad. I don't care what you grab. Just grab something to write some things down. Is they're going to teach you how they broke through what you might think of as barriers towards getting into really incredible festivals and events and meeting with people that you might think you could never get a meeting with just because of their willingness to put themselves out there, A, and B, to have incredibly gracious manners and etiquette around staying in touch with people. And look, before you try to make them special, like, oh, I bet they have this or that or this thing going for them, what they did was they relied again and again on being good people, which sounds like, so like, Brian, this is not advice. Wait till you hear how they got themselves into not one, but two Comic-Cons. Wait till you hear how their pilot and how they're producing a series where they have an entire team who are filming it over and over again in their seasons. How they raise money, how Danielle got into Tribeca. So these are not wild stories that like can only happen for people who are at a certain level. What they did is they followed a rule book, and the rule book was kindness can open doors and community can create opportunity. So I can't wait for you to meet them and start taking notes. So hello, Danielle and Timothy. Thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're so happy to be here.
So Danielle, you're no stranger to the podcast. You've been here before. I would say at the very beginning, you were one of my first episodes. I think you're episode number 6 or 7, I think, actually, which is so wild to me.
I know.
Right.
I know. I got to hop on that train.
At the beginning. And so through Danielle, I helped with Danielle. So for my audience here, we found representation for Danielle. And at the time, I also got to meet her incredible, amazing husband and have been such fans of the work that they do. And the reason why I wanted to have them on the pod today is because y'all make shit happen. You create opportunities for yourselves. You are also people who have I say this with the lightest touch, like normal jobs as well, because I don't think your job is that normal. I think your job is super interesting. But meaning that you have this is the passion that you're putting forward and with the energy that you have, and you're doing it together, and your husband and wife team, which I think a lot of people are like, are you kidding? I'd be pulling my hair out. So I wanted to get into kind of all of that. And where I'd love to start is kind of how did the genesis, explain what Brooklyn Quarter is and the genesis of that, because it sounds like that's the umbrella for where it all lives. Will you walk us through that?
Who wants to start? You want to start, Danielle?
Take it away, Timothy.
All right, I'll take it away. So Brooklyn Quarter came out of as all good things do, a big need. We were in Brooklyn. We had a group of friends that were all creatives, and there had been an organization that had been binding us together in order for us to hang out and have fun, and that organization started to kind of dwindle in interest for people. So I was looking for something that we could all do. These were a bunch of musicians, and I was looking for something we could do. I came up with the idea for a board game night, went to a local game store, and they recommended Dungeons & Dragons. And when we played it the first time, it was the most fun I had ever had sitting down. I had never experienced anything like it. I was like a 31-year-old man, going I feel like I am a 9-year-old who just inhaled sugar. Like, this is everything I've ever wanted in a social project. And because I come from a live production, live streaming, video background, I was like, I want to put this on the internet. And thus began an entirely far too complicated journey of technology to do it. But we realized we needed some kind of net agent that would allow us to put everything out. And that was whenever we came up with Brooklyn Quarter. Awesome. And it came out because we needed a place to put things. And it really acted as a really nice, also catch-all for all the creative projects that Danielle was wanting to write at the time, which were like small sketch comedy bits. So those two things combined for our D&D show and sketch comedy for just all around good ideas. And
what I heard you saying, I want to make sure. I want to make sure that no one missed this, and I really promise I'll pass the mic to you, Danielle, is that the glue for Genesis was I wanted to hang out with these people. I wanted to be with these people, and the thing that was holding us together disappeared, and it kind of just created this, because I know that's such a huge part of what you're still doing, so I can't wait to keep getting into that. So Danielle, please, what were you going to say?
No, it's so absolutely true. I was just going to say that it's really cool to see how it's been 5 years going into our 6th year, going strong, because we started Brooklyn Quarter in 2017. And, you know, we've obviously all been through a pandemic. We've been through, we're on a different coast now. We're based in LA. There's no way we're giving up that Brooklyn name. But we're keeping that. But it's been so neat to see how it's formed into this, for lack of a better term, production company to really start, housing different types of creative work. And we can get into, other things that we're doing right now, but it's just really exciting to see how it's like blossomed and how people come to us now and say, hey, can I cut my teeth on producing? I don't know what I'm doing. Can you kind of take me under your wing? And we have people sort of working with us in that capacity now, and just things that I never thought would happen. So
that's awesome. So everybody, so they can get even more aware of what Brooklyn Quarter does. Walk us through a little bit of the projects that you've done, that you maybe have on the horizon, and feel free to get as detailed as you're willing to get, because I think we want to understand more of both how you've made it and what it makes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you want to start, Danielle?
Sure. Yeah. I'll start with my my baby, which is the short film Liza Anonymous.
Which I had the privilege of seeing.
Yes.
In your living room? Is that where I saw it for the first
time?
Yes. Okay.
You did.
At the inaugural Brooklyn Dollar Film Festival, coming soon to Los Angeles, whenever we figure it out.
Yes.
That's another one. So stay tuned for that film festival down the line. So that's a future project. But yeah, Liza Anonymous, the short film, I did talk about it on the podcast before. We made it in November 2019, and it's a story about this lonely millennial named Liza. I play that character, and she becomes addicted to support groups. And she creates different personas to fit into each group. And then, of course, her charade crumbles, and she's forced to get to the root of her unique addiction and find her true identity. And what is that? Yes, this is all in 11 minutes, by the way.
And written with you, with the incredible Leah McKendrick. Did Leah McKendrick direct it?
Yeah, so Leah McKendrick wrote it. Aubrey Smith directed it. Amazing female comedic team. And Leah is actually working on the feature right now. We have that in our sights for 2023, which is so exciting. But the big thing that was such a win for that short was that it premiered at Tribeca Film Festival last year. And that really... for the first time, got us talking to some different people and opening some new doors that wouldn't have opened previously, which was really, really exciting and new. And so ironic that we had to leave New York to come back to New York for this exciting thing, because we had moved to LA already at that point. So yeah, and then other than that, in the film sector, we just produced 2 more shorts this summer. One is called Tiki Bar Funeral Home, and the other was called Ex-Husband. And I star. I produced them here in LA, and I starred in both of them. And,
so everyone who's listening, just like, wait, I just want to plot. Hello, please listen. She produced them and starred. So far, we've clocked 3 projects, and what you need to know about Danielle is, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you know this already, is Danielle's not like, I'm a big shot and I need to be in everything. It's actually very authentic, and like grassroots is the wrong way to describe yourself, but like Danielle is collaborating and bringing people in on these projects to make great things together. This is not just like, I'm making a star vehicle for myself. So what I just want to emphasize for everyone as we hear that is take out any like, this bitch is just making films for herself. In actuality, she's making a community of people and offering opportunities at the same time, which is why I see it multiplying, because so many other people are getting opportunity by the awesomeness that you're creating. And I think that is just so exciting. And like, I just wanted to say that out loud so everyone just really gets that this isn't about what I think is the magic of it is we rarely tap into our own ability to offer other people opportunities, and it can start to feel selfish. And I think that the 2 of you do such a beautiful job of making this about who else can we involve? How can we make this for other people? Like, and I love that about what y'all do. So sorry to interrupt, but I want to make sure people are clocking that, because I think it's not a solo job is what I want to say.
No, Brian, you literally just made my day. That's like I can go home now because that was perfect. That was so
Great.
lovely.
We're now how many minutes in? We're like about 7 minutes in. Podcast episode over.
Also, that'd be a
Can't
great
top
quote
that.
for the back of the book. I feel like people limit their ability to create opportunities for others, and I was like, oh my god, that's really good, Brian.
Great.
Well, and
Good.
it's
Good.
I love that shines through because that is something that Timothy and I so desire. And so when you have that, it just starts to show. It's like it's just there. And you know what, to dive a little bit more into what you said, Brian, to pull back the curtain on one of the processes. So for the short film Tiki Bar Funeral Home, there was I'm in a women in film group called the Filmmake Hers. It's very lovely. Check it out. They're so wonderful. Stacey Capone is the head of it. She's fantastic. And it's all female identifying folks. We meet in these monthly salons on Zoom, and I, through the tiny little Zoom box, got to know this girl named Amy DePaula. Never met her in person. And I went to the Holly Shorts Film Festival last year, kind of walking around. They had it at Madame Tussauds, so you're like, is that J-Lo? No, that's just a wax figure.
It's very
you're kind of
creepy at a
walking
party.
around. Yeah, it's
It also
a little
felt like
creepy.
a little more fabulous. Like, oh my, like look who's here.
I turned
It's
a
like
corner
Chris
and ran
Evans
into
is the bartender.
I ran into Ariana DeBose, and I was like, oh god, oh wait, no, she's
Wait,
that's
Ariana
a
DeBose.
statue.
That's a fast wax.
No,
museum
you mean
of
Ariana
DeBose.
Grande. Ariana Grande.
Oh, Ariana Grande. Sorry. Whoops.
I was like, they got Ariana DeBose up there fast.
Yeah.
It's in like a year. Yeah.
If she's watching this, she's like, wait, I've been mad. Sorry, Ariana, you're not. It's the other Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, this was pre-Oscar for Ariana DeBose, which Timothy collaborated with her many years ago.
Way long ago.
Okay.
Way long ago.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Other story. But okay, all this to say, I was at this party, and like also, as Brian says, I want you to hear this, going to sometimes these, film festivals, even if your film is not in them, is so valuable because you can go and meet other filmmakers. And if they're like, oh, great, is your film in this? It's like, oh, no, actually, but I am producing this and I came to support and I'm so happy to be here. And then it's a great networking in an organic way. So anyway, I was walking through Madame Tussauds and, lo and behold, I see Amy DePaula, my friend from the Filmmake Hers, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're Danielle, right? I'm like, yeah, hi. So we start chatting, and something in me was like, you know what? You should send her your short film, Liza Anonymous, to watch. And I sent it to her. We ended up getting coffee the next week. The following week, she sent me a script and was like, let me know your thoughts. And I was like, okay. I read it and I was like, hey, my first thought is I want to play the lead. And I was like, is that okay to say? And she wrote back and she said, I actually kind of started tweaking the script for you after I saw you in Liza. And she was like, and like, I want to work with you, And so we ended up doing it. I basically played the character that was kind of her. It's based sort of on a true story. And it's this wacky, amazing, really fun world and fun story where my character goes back to her ex-boyfriend from high school's funeral, but you find out he's not actually dead, and it's really, really quirky. And we shot it in June of this year, and, she EP'd it. She brought me on as a producer as well, and it was just one of those things where it was like I was just walking through the world and it kind of happened. And so
Wait. No. I'm not going to say that. Danielle, you went to the film festival.
Cut that part out.
Yeah, cut that part out because I want everyone to hear this because it's so important. Is you went to the film festival, you joined a group where there are people you're talking about this. And one of the things I love that you said about like go to a film festival even if you don't have a film there is because everyone at a film festival is freaking hustling. Every single person there. And I just think hustlers recognize hustlers and they want to collaborate, and being able to be there whether or not you're with a property is so important because you're gonna meet the right people. So I just love how much you showed up inside of that story. But that's not all y'all do. That's the film division, right? That's the film division. Timothy, do you want to walk us through some of the other stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, so here's the other creative division. We also produce a tabletop series, which is where we sit around and play a tabletop RPG set in a fantasy world.
Wait, what's an RPG? Talk to me like I'm a third grader.
Role-playing game. Yeah.
Okay, great.
This is basically this is the. I feel like there's been such a revolution of Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs, role-playing games, especially among actors, right? Because where else do you get the opportunity to act and improvise and dig into a character for 3 or 4 hours at a time among other actors?
And play a game. Wait, and play a game.
Play a
like
game.
The game part's it's different than just regular old acting because you get to play a game. Like I want to win, right?
Yeah.
Or I want to succeed.
It's entirely planted right in collaboration because you're in a group of people, and if one of you wins, you're all winning, right? The idea is that you're in a party. And so we have a tabletop series known as Novel Chronicles. We've been making it since we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary of doing the show.
Oh, congratulations.
And thank you very much. And
that's a big deal.
It's been such a blessing over the last few years to work on the technology of doing a tabletop series, because we had an old one in Brooklyn. We did I think we tallied it up the other day, and it was like we did like 137 I think episodes of our old shows between Danielle and I game mastering those 2 different shows, but they were all live. And when you're doing a live show, it's a little bit like hanging on to a motorcycle without sitting on it, because you're desperately trying to keep up with this machine that's just running. And so, because we were producing a 3 to 4 hour show that would come out, that we would stream every single week.
Oh my God.
We met every single Monday night.
So
for years.
So not only are you performing, but you're also, between those, I'm writing all the content for the next one, printing all the 3-dimensional terrain that I set on the table in order to have as a small sets. In the middle of also doing like the rest of my life, right?
And having a normal job and a real life.
And having a normal job.
Yeah.
And also like the thing about whenever you do a show like this is that even though everything is on a smaller scale, we're in one room and we're filming people at tables and miniature terrain. If you want it to look good, you're still having to do all the technical, figure everything out in order to actually film it. It's like, it's funny. We've worked on short films that have been less complicated than our tabletop series, even though it happens in one room and we do it all the time.
And I want to clock for everybody. If you haven't done this already, if you go, I will link to your YouTube channel, but the moment you watch just the introduction to this, you'll even get a better understanding of what this is, because you do such a beautiful job just in your opening, I don't know what you call that, sequence, in your opening sequence, like we really understand what this is. If you're not understanding, I want everyone to just go watch it. And I want to make sure there are some really cool, like the 3D things that you make. What do you call them? Because they're awesome. What are they called?
It's a miniature terrain. Yeah, the terrain.
They are so cool. And then, and then also so I want to make sure, because we talked about this once socially, but I want to make sure I got it. You're calling the camera at the same time you're doing the show, or no? Are you calling, like, are you like moving from?
Not anymore.
We got a lot of camera angles going on when we're doing this.
Yeah, we used to do that, and that nearly broke my brain. And that was when we were live.
And your fingers, I can imagine.
Yeah. It was because it was like, for those who've done anything with live streaming, there's a program called OBS. Most people who use it, there's a lot of streamers who will go like, oh yeah, I've used OBS. Like most people use it. You'll have maybe 4 or 5 shots. They're called scenes.
Right.
When we did our old show, I had 90 different scenes that
we like
I was
showing
queuing.
the toilet. Like, what are these 90 different things you're showing?
Well, it's because you've got rearrangements, you've got graphics that pop on screen, and I was looking for any way that I could, because what happened was we started the show, released the show, no one's watching, right? And you go like, what have I done? Why is no one watching? Well, maybe it's my production. And you go like, oh, what I need to do is I need to do all these tiny little tweaks. Now, when we moved to Los Angeles, that was the big kind of revelation that like, oh, I need to kind of reinvent the way I make the show. That was the big thing that spurned where we are now. But it was funny because you start to drown sometimes in technology if you don't have a plan. Yeah. And something that I'm really thankful about our current show that we're doing, Novel Chronicles, is that it really is the evolution of everything that we learned from when we were doing the show in Brooklyn, that we learned from making short films, that we learned from the other kinds of entertainment things we've been making. And this one is really, it's kind of, as it is right now, is as good as I can make it. That's how I feel about it. It's like, this is something I'm truly proud of. It's edited, it's concise, it's planned. I went through and rewrote the rules of combat so that it's very clear to understand, and it allows me to kind of get the show out of the way so that I can tell a good story and the actors can tell a good story. And
because I love when I'm watching it, Timothy, what I just want to make sure everyone notices is like, this could be like, here are people sitting at a table playing a game. Is not what you see at all. And I think that what I love what you said is like, our views aren't up. You didn't say, I suck. This is a dumb idea. No one cares. I should never do this again. You said, what can I do to make it better? Which I think is usually for some creative people, it can go either direction. It can go like, this was a bad idea. I'm going to walk away from it. I don't have enough inspiration to stick with it. And for you, you said, let me just like use some data instead of drama here and see like, what can I know that this could look better? I already have an intuition on my own. So I'm going to see what I do with that. And then I'm assuming you've already seen like, this was a success metric for you. Like, you're like, oh, the engagement here is so much better. Right? Yeah.
I think it was the thing where like so we did the show in Brooklyn for 3.5 years. And I love those cast members deeply that were with us on the show. But then we came out to LA and we made the new show. And so far from that new show, we've spoken at 3 Comic-Cons this year, including San Diego Comic-Con. Awesome. And so like it was a big step change of the old show and how we made it to the new one, and kind of like instantaneous improvement of going we were in total obscurity speaking at San Diego Comic-Con. It was like
validation. Freaking validation is real validation, not like I need to feel good validation, but actually like, oh, we're noticing. Go ahead, Danielle.
Well, no, I think what's so important too is that when we came here, we were like, you know what, we want quality over quantity. And so because on our last show, like Timothy said, we did over 140 episodes or whatever. And right now, how many episodes do we have released? 10? 10. We have a couple in the can that we're editing right now, and then we're filming. We have some other fun stuff up our sleeve, but over the last year, we've only had 10 episodes out, and it's because we've really been taking our time and strategic, and we also have professional actors on the show, and so we all I don't know, it's a little bit heavier. We value it a little more. On the Comic-Con thing, I want to say something because this once again speaks to hustle.
Yeah.
So
you have a great story about the Comic-Con hustle. I mean, you should just tell the story. I mean, I know that. Please tell the story. Wait, before you do, I want to pause for a second because I want to make sure everyone doesn't miss this because there's something really good. The 100 episodes where I know you're proud of them, but you're so much different now. You needed to do those 100 episodes to get it in your bones and know what works, and for you to be able to tell different stories, Timothy. This is why it worked and why that was so. So I think that oftentimes 100 episodes is a lot. That means many, many, many weeks of you doing this over and over again and putting it up, whatever. And so I think we have to remember that we have to get our 10,000 hours in or whatever. We are getting smarter every single time. We're learning better things about storytelling. So those of you who are listening who are thinking about content creation, I think worry less about satisfying anyone but yourself in the beginning, you know?
And I can comment to something on that too, which I'm kind of grappling with, is that I've always wanted to be a professional writer. This has always been a thing, but not like I started out in journalism, but I was mainly doing photojournalism, and so multimedia journalism, doing video, photo, kind of the collaboration of the two, and audio. And I always wanted to be a creative writer, but I didn't want to become a script writer at a writing room, and I didn't want to. I have a very niche interest in writing, which is writing stories set in a fantasy world of my creation, right? So it's a unique world that I made that I wanted to write stories in, and that's a really daunting thing to go like, oh my gosh, I've never.
What do you mean? You can just be J.R.R. Tolkien. What are you talking about?
Right?
It's easy. No big deal.
It's easy, you know. All she did was write it on a napkin and look, billions of dollars, and it's like no, it's like right. So you go like, and so I don't know. It's that feeling of. I don't know if anyone's ever climbed a mountain before, but you get to the base and you look up and you go like, oh, okay, can I do this? And I always wanted to be a writer, but I never could find the volume to where I could actually go, oh yeah, I've written a thing. But then after doing the 140 episodes of the old show, when I came out to LA and started compiling my notes, I had written over 400 pages. In Microsoft Word, which would equate to 800 pages in a novel of the world setting, of the world guide. And I had accidentally done it. And that encouragement completely changed my life, honestly. Because I looked at it and went oh, actually, I've written something. I wrote something. And now I'm able to go even though, those episodes of that old show, they're not up. You can't view them. Because
so don't go looking for those of you mega fans out there.
But whenever we came out to here, and I was I need to get everything in one place. I realized that I could write short stories if I wanted from this. I could write little novelettes. I could write whatever I want, and I could write a script. And so that kind of that kind of iterative process that led to that was just completely revolutionary for me.
Yeah, I love that.
But okay, back to Comic-Con.
And I promise we're going to Comic-Con, but I want to say one more thing, which is so often a creative person that doesn't look back and go, oh, what have made? Because we're so ambitious for what's next, which is great because it keeps you driving. But I think like that's why like it's, you know, right now we're talking towards the end of this year, end of 2022. And so I always say like you have to do your year in review so you can take stock of where you've really shown up and what you've accomplished. Because I just believe you can't build on success that isn't measured or achievement you haven't recognized, achievement you haven't acknowledged, success you can't build on success you haven't acknowledged, I think is the right way to say that. I didn't come up with that, but I think it's such an important piece, and so that's so great. Like, oh wait, I did do shit. That's so good. So wait, Danielle, give us the inside scoop on how you hustled your butt off for Comic-Con.
Yes. So let's rewind to a year ago. So it was end of 2021, and I had heard about LA Comic-Con. Wow, I had to go back. LA Comic-Con was happening December 4th of last year, and I had heard a little rumblings about it, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh, this is cute. It's like people go for board games and comics, and it's not one of the big heavy hitter ones. And that's cool. It knows what it does. There's some cosplay. It's not wild and you know, out there like the San Diego Comic-Con. So anyway, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to email info@lacomiccon.com and let them know that I have a show. I also went on Canva right before, created my own little pitch deck of the show. And, you know, I was like, this is Novel Chronicles, and we've been on these podcasts, and this is the world. These are the characters. These are the people involved. Don't you want to know us? And I emailed them, and they were like, Danielle, email this person instead. And I was like, great. So I got a different email, redid everything. And then they wrote back, they're like, I'm so sorry. Like our panel programming, the deadline's closed. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, no worries. Like, are there passes so we can still come? An hour later, hi, you know what? Actually, I think we have a room available on, you know, the Saturday at 3:00. Could you guys come? Like, I know it's, you know, last minute. Sorry.
It's
and
a
we
great
were like,
slot too.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
Of course we can. So that was our first one. And the panel was called Level Up. You know, a little game pun, creating an RPG empire. So what it takes to create your role-playing game empire, but what that looks like with different businesses across that genre and gaming and that sort of thing. So we had we had an amazing dice maker, a candle maker, we had, at that one, we had, I guess, Wormwood Gaming. They do a lot of gaming accessories, like very high-end, beautiful woodworking. And they all said yes. I asked them all to come. One of the companies flew out from Massachusetts to be on the panel. Like, just
That's
really
amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we did that. And then we were like, great. We did our first panel, and then WonderCon was coming up, which is in the Anaheim Convention Center, and that was April of this
My
year.
brother's obsessed with WonderCon, just so you know. So Scott Pataka may roll up sometime. So just so you know, I've already sent him all your stuff, and I'm like, Scott, you're gonna lose it. Yeah,
It's a great convention.
It's so fun. That convention's really fun. And the costumes, like their cosplay is and they have food trucks out front. Like, it's just this really lovely community. And so we thought, oh, maybe I could take this panel to that. So, of course, I find out about it, 2.5, 3 weeks before. And I'm like, great, here I go again.
Very behind on planning.
I'm the last minute. I'm the pinch hitter. I'm the pinch hitter for these
Yeah. And so, I kid you not, pretty much the exact same thing happened. I emailed the info at whatever. They transferred me to the lovely WonderCon folks. And they were like, you know what, fill out the application just in case, but our panels are booked, Well, lo and behold, we got that Saturday afternoon slot. Let me tell you.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, okay. And that one was really, really great because we got to add some different guests to our portfolio. Geeky Teas is here in Burbank. They came, and we had Elhofer Design, Catherine Elhofer. She makes like geeky inspired apparel, very high end, beautiful stuff.
It's beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's the perfect thing for that. That's the perfect thing for that conference too. right?
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
And she was spotting her apparel
Designs.
being used as cosplay.
Got
Yeah, it's
it.
kind of
So she'd be like, "Oh, they're wearing my skirt. Oh, they're like her brand was being
Cool.
worn at the Comic-Con already,
Yes.
which was so
Yeah.
neat." And and so we did that one, and our friend Niger, he hosted that, and Timothy and I spoke on that panel, and from
Shane.
there Shane Salk from Car Serum, and you know what I did, Brian? I said, I'm gonna go. Since I'm here, I'm going to go upstairs and say hi to the programmers. Yeah. So I went up. I went upstairs.
I mean, everyone, just please notice. Nothing's going to happen if you don't ask. And nowhere in this, here's the thing that I want everyone to notice. Nowhere in this does Danielle sound like a jerk trying to take up too much space. Nowhere in this does she sound like needy. It is literally, she's got great manners throughout this entire process of like, hey, what is the process like? And I always say that we can lean on good manners if we ever are feeling like not motivated to take action. Like, well, good mannered person would go say hi and thank you for having me at the event today. Like, that's what good manners are. It's not about me asking for anything. So like, sometimes manners are the good trick to use when you get up in your head. Anyway, go on.
That's such a great way to put it, actually, because, and this is what was so funny. When I went up, I walked in and there was a woman at the desk, and they have kind of their war room, of like,
name tags are everywhere.
Central.
People are coming with clipboards and what do we do next? Yes.
There's like multiple walkie-talkie channels going on.
Yes. And, a whiteboard somewhere. Yes. Bottles of water on the floor wrapped in plastic from Costco. Yes, I know the exact room. Yeah.
A gross pile of candy. No, they were healthy, but it was still.
There was no candy. No, exactly. And Timothy's always looking for Laffy Taffy.
Always.
Anyway,
okay.
So I walk in and there's a woman there, and I'm like, hi, I'm looking for so and so, and she was like, oh, well, what happened? Like, is something wrong? What can we take care of for you? Blah blah blah.
They're definitely in war room mode. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh no, I just wanted to thank you guys for getting my panel in last minute and being so gracious and blah blah blah. And she was like, oh, okay. Yeah, let me see if she's around. Hold on. And then she texted her, and the person came in, and a couple people had been emailing with they had this like curtain, pipe and drape area, and they emerge, and they're like, hello,
We have fans?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, hi. So they came out and spoke to us, and then they proceeded to give us the whole download of like, basically the secrets of how to get your panel into the Mecca of San Diego Comic-Con. Wow. So, and they were just so generous, and they were like, yeah, we heard your panel went great. Here's what you should do if you want to get to San Diego. You have to do this, this, and this. Make sure you fill it out this way. Make sure you write these things down, get in before this date, try this. And because of their tips and how just generous they were with that, we secured our panel at San Diego Comic-Con. We spoke on the Sunday, and we invited a lot of the same people from before, but it's like we got free badges to this event that had been sold out because of previous years. It was the first year back since COVID.
In 2 years.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they were completely sold out. Badges were going for like, $1,200 on eBay, whatever. And we're over here, and we got to bring some plus ones of some fans of the show with us. And it was just so, I don't know if the word's cathartic, but it was just this amazing journey from December through July, because July was San Diego Comic-Con, to have this sort of saga of applying for cons. And just because we have a good product, we're good people, and like Canva and persistence.
Yeah, I love Canva.
You know what I mean?
It's so good. Yes. And also, I wonder if we just noticed, because what I want to get into next is like the money behind some of this, because I think people a lot of times have questions about how do you have enough money to do this and da-da-da. And so I want to talk about that piece. But what you just talked about was all things that you did where it didn't it cost money to travel there and da-da, whatever, that kind of stuff. But these were all asks that you made to offer something. Like, could we offer a great panel for you, right? Which then gives you this great validation of like, look at the places we've been. FYI, everyone, we will of course link in the show notes to their panel, because you have it on YouTube, so I'll make sure that we link to that as well. But can you walk us through a little? So you're making all these things, you're getting noticed, you're getting validation from the industry. And I use that word in the healthy way. I want to say validation, like we have little feathers in our cap that we can use to say people are noticing besides just us being noisy on YouTube, right? Can you tell us when you need, because all of this I'm sure assuming is like, we are working with collaborators where no one's being paid, or sometimes they're being paid, or sometimes they're raising money because we've got a lot of people we're hiring. Can you walk us through a little bit of, do you have a system that you always use? Is it different every single time? Talk to us about this. And I think this will give you an opportunity to talk about how you really make the community a part of this effort as well. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah. So we used to be involved with a bunch of different volunteer organizations in New York. And when we were there, we volunteered at a lot of different organizations. And one of the things we took away from that when we came out here was that volunteerism is very problematic at times. It's one thing to go and help out at a food bank, but it's another thing to be attached to an organization for years as a volunteer. Because essentially a volunteer is kind of just an unpaid staff member. Mm-hmm. At a certain point, you've crossed the threshold. Like, you have ownership within the company, but you're not being compensated. And it creates a weird power imbalance because essentially you are infinitely needed, but infinitely replaceable, right? And it's not in the normal contract kind of thing where you can rely on it. So if there's a conflict, people kind of go like, well, am I going to lose my privilege? Am I going to lose my place at the table? Because I don't actually have, my name's not written on a card. This is just my chair. This is one I always sit in. Yeah. And so when we came out here, when we started doing projects, we made a hard and fast rule that we weren't going to do volunteers anymore, which has been, and it's more difficult, right? Yeah. Because people go like, oh my gosh, I can't afford to pay whatever. But it's not necessarily that we're able to pay everyone what we want to pay them, but we do pay them something. And that small act has recalibrated the way we even think about doing a project.
Talk us through. This is so good. Keep going.
Yeah. So it means that, like for our show, right now, our show, we don't bring in, oodles and buckets of money, but we do have Patreon. And what Patreon allows us to do is it allows us to pay the people who are working the cameras and working the board to capture for Novel Chronicles. And they have to come in and they have to work for 4 hours. It's a job.
And they're doing it. This is the person who's calling the camera live, right?
Yes.
So they're the Grammys. This is the Grammys. This is what a part. Everyone just really clocked. Someone is going camera one, camera two. Da, 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 da. I mean, they're not saying it with a headset with 16 people in the room. It's your 2 people are helping or whatever. But that is what's happening. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're in there, and they're basically making sure that as the show is being taped, as we're in. I'm actually sitting in the studio here. As they're in the other room and the show's being taped, they are making sure the audio is recording, the cameras are going, everything's in focus, and they are no eyes on the prize, basically.
Right.
And for them, we pay them hourly, right?
Got it.
And so that's kind of I would say that's the bulk of our Patreon goes to that. And for our actors, when the actors come in, they're also, we pay them a travel stipend, so they get paid for travel. But then we also kind of view it that they're the ones who really, along with us, get to walk away with the show as a vehicle for them for other things in their career because they're visible on it. They get a lot of footage on it. And so at the moment, the goal is that we'll pay them a full fee as well. That's kind of our next goal. That's what we're aiming for next. And then the rest of it's craft services. And that's our budget. And so
we
Danielle
always have a Mendocino Farm or Chipotle or Sweet Green. There's always something delicious.
Yeah. And one other thing too is we decided too with this show that we would be radically transparent with everyone involved about how much money comes in and where it goes. Mm-hmm. So every month I send out to the Patreon. I'm like, hey, this is equipment that was purchased because we're not doing the show right now, or this is the show that was taped. And we try to be really, really, really clear about that. And that kind of change, that kind of step change for us resulted in us really not looking for when we would come up with a project, we don't look at the project going oh my gosh, we just got to figure out how we can get people in here to help us make this thing. Instead we go, oh, no. Every single person that we make a project with is now involved in Brooklyn Quarter. They're now a part of the family. They're a part, what kind of family? We're not weird, it's a family. But they're
this
part
is not
of
a cult.
This
is not Brooklyn culture. Yeah.
No.
Brooklyn culture.
Yeah, but it's I would say it's part of the the wider Brooklyn Quarter network. Like we view them as inside the stables. And so every time somebody comes in, that means that down the line for the next projects we have coming up, we've established that, hey, we are people that pay people. We are people that feed people. We are people that respect people. So when we have another project, we look back at who we have and go, hey, do we have it here? Because all these people like us because we try to respect them and their time the way we wished we had that. And it's resulted in just a continuous net gain in the way that we are able to make projects because we've now got a bunch of peers around us who want to work with us. And
so this goes as far as like the sound person, the PA person, all these things so that you're like, I mean, and also what if someone's a dipshit? Or you're like, well, we won't be calling them again. I mean, that could happen in the world, right? But so what you're saying is we are buying into a future with someone when we work with them. We are believing in they know we're hustling. They know that we're getting very transparent about the money that we're bringing in and not bringing in. But that says to me also, like, even because you have a long-standing project, which is what we're talking about, Novel Chronicles, and then you have the films that you make from time to time where you must have someone you hire, you might not see them again until the next time you might make a film. Is it the same kind of dynamic there and you're paying everyone on set, or is it a different, do you have to, but in those I'm imagining there's like the Patreon ain't paying for the full short film, right? So in those situations, is there a different way that you're kind of either accruing some money or asking for investors, or what does that look like? Just, and as much as you're willing to share, only because I know some people will put this as the reason they can't make anything will be this reason. So I want to at least chip away that a little bit for some people if we can, because you've done such a great job.
Do you want to dig into that, Danielle?
Yeah. And also just a very quick thing about this as a springboard was back in 2017, I made this film called it's a web series, Just All Around Good Ideas. And it's just me as Danielle giving really bad advice to my fans and followers. So I'm kind of like a fake influencer. And it's just there's 10 episodes on our YouTube. And it was something because Timothy was like, he knew I was frustrated with, I was in New York and I was wanting to book more things and I was doing a lot of theater, but I was like, I want something on camera that lasts. And
Timothy's a really good husband, Danielle. Timothy's a really good
I
husband.
know. He was my boyfriend at the time, too.
I mean, that's just like, I just want to say, like, typically when you hear the actor, I don't want to say complaining, but like, I'm not getting enough opportunities. Like, a lot of times partners don't know how to respond to that or how to show up in the way that is actually helpful. And I just want to just advocate for that. And also acknowledge that sometimes partners have no idea how to have that conversation with. So the match of creativity here is really, I think, special and I think also unique. Like if I was like to Jake's, my partner's name is Jake. You both know him, but I'll just share this with everyone.
I love him.
My partner says to me when I'm like, I really want to, I would like to send my mom a little bit of money for Christmas. He goes, why don't you just start acting again? Just like get some money. And so his relationship with my acting career, because he sees like all the commercials that I did and the print work, is that like, when you act, Brian, you just make money. And I'm like, that is the perspective I want everyone listening to have. Like that's what it's like. But it just is so not the same as what everyone's reality is. I just think it's amazing. Anyway, so that's not to say like I was working all the time, but that's to say like partners don't always get it. And I just think it's special for us to highlight this. And I also just want to say this because I feel like I should, because I'm the host of this podcast. You don't always need to have that in a partner to have a great relationship. So let's just beware. I'm just saying it's so cool that you had that in that moment, Danielle. So I just want to make a little shout out for Timothy there.
Thank you.
Shout out to T Reese.
Yes.
No, I totally agree with that, because there can be many. I mean, you can have great relationships with the right brain and the left brain. You don't both have to be in that same creative flow. But in this case, in that moment, it was helpful and encouraging because he was like, just do something that you can fail at. Just try something. And I was like, okay. And so I wrote this little thing. And we shot it, and our friend Devin came over, and that was it. And it was free. You know what I mean? So like it was free. It's just me on camera acting a fool. For the second season, I brought in one of my friends for one episode, and she just happened to live down the street, so she came over. So that was really one of those bare bones things. So from there, it was like, okay, cool. I've done something that is kind of would have been scary, and now it's done, and great, let me move on. And so when it comes to projects, I really let each project, specifically film, whether we're talking about short film, feature film, I'm not really in the pilot and TV world in the traditional sense. We have some really fun, kind of interesting things happening for us. It's the first time ever in that world. I can't really talk about it, but you know, it's exciting.
Yes.
But I'm more in this short film and feature film world. So what I will say is I let every project really speak to me as to what it needs to be. Does it need to be 16 pages or can it be 11? Does it need to be 5 pages? How much needs to go into this? Should I play the lead or should I direct? Should someone else? You know, like, what does that look like? And so when I started with Liza Anonymous, we made it for $22,000, and it's like the production quality is beautiful. Like they really came together and the director was giving me her, you know, clothes to wear, and like everyone just really came together. We got this amazing like Korean church in Astoria that we shot, and it looks like there's like 6 locations in the film, but it's really one place, you know. So where we shot, so getting those locations and everything, but getting that 20,000, I didn't do a traditional crowdfunding, which, listen, I have to say things like Seed and Spark and Indiegogo and Kickstarter, I know sometimes for people they can be exhausting, but if you get that team together, the more eyeballs that get on it, I don't think I've ever seen a friend of mine have a failed Kickstarter, actually. I think awesome. Every time it's worked, but you have to have that community behind you.
So we're just coming back because we had a real loud leaf blower. Some of you might have heard that on the record just now. And Danielle, using her impeccable manners once again, asked the nice leaf blower if she could have a moment of no leaf blowing. He said, "I'm going to take lunch." So we're back. And Danielle, pick up where you left off. You were saying that the different crowdsourcing, like those can work. You've never had someone have that fail because of the community around them. I know I'm not expecting you to teach a master class on this at all, but can you just give me a little insight of what you mean that like you've got some people that are activated to like be ambassadors? Is that what that means when you say that? Yes,
exactly. So if you, when you're working on a project, if you know like, okay, the cast and crew is going to be 70 people. Okay, utilize all those people that are going to be involved in the project to reach out to even if those 70 people reach out to 5 to 10 people, already you're ripple affecting, like you're going out. Also, not only that, but there are people in your life that would surprise you to know that they might have more money and more desire to be involved in a creative thing than you might think. So alone, right? Like you alone might have enough power to get the 20,000 just from someone you know. Yeah. And because people are wanting to be a part of things,
creative, cool stuff.
Yeah. Tell a good story, creative, cool stuff. I mean, yeah, and really it's that power of asking, and it's honestly it's if you take hashtag agent goals, you will learn how to write an amazing email. Honestly, this is not an ad that will seriously carry you into those pitches or those asks, or just organizing your thoughts in a way with maybe bullet points or maybe some organizational things in an email to help someone understand what you're asking for, why you're asking for it, and what they'll get out of it. And yeah, so if you're going the crowdfunding way for a project, you know, really, really look at that community. But if you're deciding to kind of raise money on your own and maybe have like a bit high level investor meetings, or just go to that, you know, person whose pockets might be a little deeper or something, you can create your own polished pitch, you know, via email, hop on the phone, hop on a Zoom, etc. So for the projects we are doing, some of them, like the feature that we're doing next year, that is investors, and we have a lawyer involved with that and contracts and things like that. But then our shorts, on some of the projects, the EP, who's also been the writer, they've raised the money. Mm-hmm. But when it came to Liza Anonymous, I raised all that money. So, yeah, it's just there's like all different ways to, what's it called? Skin a cat? No, that's not it.
That's what it is.
What's this? Yeah. Is that the saying?
Yes. Skin a cat. But also, I think that what you're saying, Danielle, I want everyone to hear this is because I think where people fall short is they feel so uncomfortable asking for money. that they don't take up as much space as they need to explaining what they will do with it, what it will benefit the person who donates is not the right word, but whatever it is, like gives, and what it is they're creating. So they write like kind of a crappy email or a crappy reach out because they feel so uncomfortable about even doing it. Like they can't even bring themselves to do it. And what you're saying is Agent Goals, sure, it helped you, but it was about really getting clear on, let me tell you what this is, because we tend to think someone is just going to see this as a request for money, and they will unless you take the time to vulnerably say, what does it mean to you to tell the story? What does that story mean to the greater public? Like to take that action. And then what I'm hearing you say is sometimes we've had only a few people because they have deeper pockets, they're investors, we can go to them directly. And other times it's $25 from 100 people or whatever it is as the reaching out in that way. So that's really important to say. And the other thing is that I want everyone to just hear this is give people the dignity of saying no or yes to you. I think we take that dignity away of saying we're just going to annoy them. And like someone else, I think a lot of times people's own ability to not be able, like who are not good at saying no, are having a hard time making asks. Well, they won't be able to say no if they need to say no. And like, get your own baggage out of the way. Just because you're bad at saying no doesn't mean someone else is bad at saying no. And guess what? If they're not good at saying no, that means you got $25. So there you go. That's their problem. No, I don't have that. Like that's one way to think about it.
My mom has a great expression for whenever the question of whether or not you should ask for help, which is she says, "Don't rob me of my blessing." Which is don't rob her of the ability to bless someone else. She goes, if someone needs help, she needs to know. Otherwise, she's being robbed.
Yeah, that is so.
And it's like
I'm stealing Mama Reese's phrase there.
Yeah, Vicky Reese.
There it is.
Just use that
Vicky
one.
Reese.
Yeah,
Vicky Reese.
Yeah, clever mind. She I think one of the big things too that we learned on the so we have our the Liza investment money that Danielle's raised. That's like big money, right?
Big money.
Then we have our short films, which is very crowdsourced and also it comes
you're talking about Liza the feature.
The feature.
Just clarify that.
Yeah, Liza the feature. And then we have our shorts, which are the money comes from either the writer producer or it comes from, in the case of Liza, Danielle raising money for Liza the short. And then with Patreon, right, even though it's by far the lowest amount that we raise, the difference with that is that in 1 month, we used to be on Twitch when we were in Brooklyn, and we raised money, and it's almost like it's the money you're getting is almost like a vending machine. In a way, because it's very low volume, it's regular, but you don't know the value that you have in your fans because they're only putting in one amount. They're going, I'm going to give you $5 a month or nothing. And when we opened up Patreon when we came out here, we made more in 1 month than we made an entire year in Brooklyn on Twitch.
Because you're saying this is how much you pay if you want this content. This is what it is. Done. End of story.
Yeah.
Boom. And so I know how much is coming in because I know how many people I have there.
Yeah, and like the thing was, one of our fans reached out when we opened up the Patreon and actually asked for a much higher tier than was available. And it kind of blew my mind for a second because I didn't ask for that, right? I wasn't like going out shopping around trying to find out who had the most, but the way that he put it into context, which really like two big lessons learned was that one, the best way to raise money is that I've found for projects is to have an example that you've already made to show someone what they're getting. It doesn't have to be the big, most expensive thing. If you can go, hey, I made this, if you want more of this, I need this much to do it, right? Which is Patreon in a nutshell.
Right.
But the other thing too was he kind of was like, he told me that his job, which is a very corporate job, he makes a lot of money and he doesn't have time or the interest in making creative, entertaining products, but he really loves our show. And so his thing was that I will pay you this X amount to keep making this show because it's my favorite show. He goes, there are probably hundreds of thousands of people just like me that would watch your show. You just got to find them. And it's a thing that happens with creatives, right? Is that your friends are creatives. Everyone you know is a creative. And you get stuck in this mentality that there's only X amount of money out there. There's too many projects. How am I going to compete with this? How am I going to get eyeballs on it? When you don't realize there are, between just France, Germany, and Italy, that's 180 plus million people who don't speak English as their first language. Have you maybe thought about releasing multi-language products?
Yeah.
We just went on our honeymoon to that region, and we were like, "Oh, we got to translate our website now, so our new friends in Paris can like watch our stuff." You know,
there's there's a lot of people in the world. There's a lot of people that would love to watch your stuff, and they have houses and cars. There is money there, and they maybe just don't know that. Hey, if I just give you $20, it makes all your dreams come true. They maybe just don't know that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so,
it's that. I wanted to say one more thing on this is that Timothy and I, I'm torn on how to say this. We, on all these projects we've mentioned, Timothy and I don't take a cut.
No.
And it's because we're in the building phase. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to a short film that I'm producing, I could take a producer fee, I could take my actor rate, I could take whatever, but I'm not, because I'm wanting all of that money to go on the screen. I'm wanting all that money to go into sound design to make a good poster. I rather put my money back into the project. And at this point where we are as producers, that's kind of that hustle that we have. Now, when I star in my first feature film that I'm producing next year, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to take her fee or not. It depends on how high we get with the budget. It depends on whatever, but I'm going to let the project speak to me how the rest of them speak to me to say, you know, what is needed here.
Right.
And yeah. And so I don't know.
It's important to say.
It's
interesting. I think it's so important
I have
to say,
complicated
Danielle.
feelings.
Yeah, of course, because you deserve to be valued. And also while you're doing this feature film, you're going to be taken off commission of doing anything else in the world. So you can very much advocate for like, well, I should be paid for that. And then you're also like, wait, we can get the fancier camera if I don't take my cut. It's my project. I want to look that a bit. Like you can, but the truth is that's a negotiation you're having with yourself. And what I think is so important for everyone to hear is we are in the building phase. I'm in a place where I believe in what we are creating and that there's going to be more value in the future because I make this cut. And I think that you're smart enough not to cut off your nose to spite your face in terms of this, and also to be like, I should be paid or whatever it is. Or so I think that's, you know, it's the difference also between you saying I'm going to fly myself there versus the film's going to fly me there, right? That's a very different conversation where you get to have that. Or, I'm going to pay for my
front
Airbnb.
for that.
Yeah, right. I'm going to pay for my Airbnb.
Last year I was flown out.
Yes, exactly.
I was flown out for a short last year because this was a short that the producers saw me after Tribeca and they wanted me for their horror film, and I was like, cool, but you're filming in Connecticut. I'm in LA. And they were like, we'll get you out here. And that was one of those non-negotiables.
Yeah, right. And I'll just say that anytime I've ever heard an actor, it always feels like such a big deal to the actor. But almost every time I've heard an actor say this to someone, they've gotten what they wanted. And that's just anecdotal, so I can't say that's always what's going to happen. But I also think that by asking for it, you get to be who you want to be. And if they say no, you get to have a different conversation with yourself that goes, is this project mean enough to me to be able to do this? I remember what I would say to my agent, look, negotiate for this, but don't lose the job. Like, try to get us a plus 20 on top of this, but like, don't lose the job. So push as hard as you can, but I don't want to lose this. Like, it would be that. Or she would say, is it that one, or are you okay with losing it? But no, this one I'm okay with losing. It's not enough. Like, we'd have that kind of conversation. And I think that's if you can have that mindset around it, it becomes different. So I want to,
Totally.
I want to leave our listeners with kind of, obviously we know a lot more about Brooklyn Quarter and about the two of you. When you are talking to someone who is either coming to you or an actor that you know, because you have this huge community base that you're having this incredible holiday party where you really just try to welcome people into the good vibes that y'all create. What do you say to people who come to you and say, hey, I'm amazed by what you created, or could I get involved, or what's the first things you usually end up saying to people?
We just had this happen, so this is real top of mind for me. We had two people who have been involved in one of whom is a cast member and of one of the shows, and then one of whom is just a really good friend of ours that we've met over the last we met about, I don't know, I think we met about 9 months ago. And both of them within a 2-week period came forward and were like, hey, we want to get more producing experience. We would like to get involved with Brooklyn Quarter. And okay, so at that moment, it was like, you know, when you have that, like in a movie, it's whenever there's that lightning bolt and they go, and then I found myself at a decision.
Yes.
Right? Is how I felt. Because I went, okay, what is my experience of me being in this position? Right? Mm-hmm. I've been in this position before. And I go, what was my experience to what somebody told me? And the thing people would always say is, oh my gosh, I have all these places that we can use you for this, and this. This is so great. And I was like, I I actually hate that experience because then I feel like I'm being shoved into a role to fulfill their needs, right? Mm-hmm. And so at the beginning, it can be real exciting whenever you go to help out with something and they go, "Oh, do this job because I don't want to do it anymore." And I went, "Okay, no, I'm gonna take the other fork, the more difficult fork, and instead go, okay, what do you want to learn? What do you want to work on? How do you want to be better to get to where you want to go?"
Good coaching there, Timothy. Good coaching.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And what happens when you get that is that people say, A, they say the things they're good at. B, they say the things they want to work on. And from there you can go, oh yeah, we can do this, 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 and this. But you also don't give someone a job they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And you're not going to end up 6 months from now, a year from now, them going, I feel really unfulfilled doing this stuff. And and also it allows them to actually have some kind of marketable skill. So I think that's the big thing. So when somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I want to help out, I'm like, okay, what are you interested in? Because I'm not just going to give you a thing. Like, I need to know.
And for that person who is listening, and Danielle, maybe you can speak to this, who is like, I want to do what they are doing, right? Do you, like, when we think about the start, the way that I'm tracking the start is, we did this tabletop series in New York. I'm sure that's not how the genesis of it all necessarily, like, went inside of your body or the experience of doing it. What would you say to that person who's like, I think I want to make my own things? Is there any pearl of wisdom or something you want to really share with them that you think is important for them to hear?
I think that sometimes we, especially as actors or, creatives, are, we can tend to be put in a box and also put ourselves in a box, rightfully so, as we should, because when we're branding ourselves, we can't be everything. We have to know what we do and know what we do well. So I would say that find that thing that really like lights you up, that you can lean into and be like, this is my wheelhouse. If you are horror and sci-fi queen, find those like-minded people and maybe write a spec script of an episode of American Horror Story, or just try and exercise for your brain or with your community that you wouldn't normally do. Lean into that. And for me, like, I am in a place now where I'm really wanting to lean into comedy more, and I'm going to be directing next year for the first time, and I'm kind of like stepping into these new places. And so then when people talk to me, I want to be associated with comedy. Like, that's where I'm going. And also, like, that can pivot too. But I would just say, find that thing where you're like, okay, this is where I want to start. This is what I know. And then from there, tell everyone.
Yes.
Like, honestly, because it's the thing of like, tell everyone, be like, hey, I'm wanting to read some new, like if you're going into the horror, sci-fi, whatever, be like, I want to read some, scripts like this. Do you know anyone who's writing anything like this? Can I take a Zoom meeting with someone? Can I whatever? Post it on your Instagram, post it on your Facebook, tell your uncle who's a dentist. One of his clients might have a script,
Yes.
So I think that it's the telling people, and because the relationships are the number one thing that leads to everything else. Like, had I not had this film of Liza Anonymous, me running into Amy at this networking event or at the film festival, would not have created this sort of like collision of worlds in that way. And that goes back to something that I made in 2019. So looping back, all those things that you've done before and that have come before can kind of lead to what you want now. But I think just starting can be hard. Starting.
It's worth pointing out,
and
too, that
the key is starting.
Yeah.
Like Danielle, right? The inspiration for you being in the role for Liza was the fact that you spoke to Leah about how you were being a game master in your own show.
Yeah, the reason that Liza Anonymous was written with me doing all these different characters is because I was a game master of a D&D show. And I was like, oh, I like playing different characters. And then she was like, oh, well, I have this thing in my arsenal. So it was just speaking my truth at that moment, being like, I'm having a nerd moment.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that? And she was like, oh, I have this idea. I've had this idea and kicking around for years, and I can write it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, it's speaking that truth to people and like taking meetings, being like, you seem cool, want to hop on a Zoom and chat, you seem cool. Like, yeah, that's kind of like my day job, other than my other day job. My day job is like literally having general meetings with people.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to make sure everyone sees is creating evidence that shows that you want to do that. So even when you were saying things like find like-minded people who want to make horror, sci-fi, whatever, or like find yourself an awesome costume and do some makeup and take a picture of you and put it on Instagram. Make a scene that is really you rip from bodies, where you're really playing that horror vibe that you're like, so that we start to see evidence of you doing what you can say you can do. Because I think the difficulty is when you just like, if you just say it, there's a certain degree of distance you'll make, but when we actually can see some of it or hear some of it or experience some of it, we are that much ready to get on board with it. And it doesn't have to be expensive or take a lot of time. Like everyone can go out, I hope, I mean, I know there are resources involved, but like create a self-tape of an incredible horrifying sci-fi scene that you should have on tape that you can share with people, or you can put a costume on and that, like, to make it look really good. And like, those are the kind of things that we need to be giving someone the tangible experience, which is why, again, this goes back to the Kickstarter thing too, is like giving them a taste of what it's going to be helps them say yes to this, because it helps us. We're becoming, so I always say we're a very evidence-based world now, because we can carry you around on our phone and we can shoot a movie with an iPhone, right? So we want to see the evidence for it before we're always ready to jump on. And so I think what you just said is so important.
I love that.
I want to thank you both for being here today. This was to me, I learned so much. I hope the listeners learned a lot. And I know that they can find you in places. Can you tell them the places where they can find and follow along and all that stuff?
Absolutely.
Yes. Great.
For our personal, it's daniellebeckmann.com and timothyreese.com. And then you can also find us on brooklynquarter.com. That links to our Patreon, our YouTube, our Instagram, all those things. And then also, if you hop on our YouTube, youtube.com/brooklynquarter, that's where you can find our show Novel Chronicles, as well as our link to our Comic-Con panel and a couple other series. We have our Making the Show series, which is like a behind-the-scenes show, my show, Just All Around Good Ideas, and more to come.
Yay! And we will be watching, and we will link to everything you just mentioned in the show notes. So if you've got your phone in your hand, you can click on that right now and dig deeper, get to know them, or even catch us on YouTube. So I want to thank you both so much for coming on here and being with me. You know, I'm a huge fan, and we're just so grateful we got to hear what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We're big fans of yours, as you know. So this has been so lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and if anyone wants to reach out to us, please reach out to us. I feel like I should
listen to that, people. Listen to that, people.
Yeah.
Use your manners. You heard what Timothy said. Do not steal his blessing. He said, reach out. So if you are someone who is excited by this and heard something that really caught your ear, or these are people who are saying we are available to that. You're probably going to get a lot of people who are interested. So I'm excited for you too.
I hope so.
Love it.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
It's always nice to find new collaborators. So please reach out.
I love that.